Welcome back. I think we can beat Tom Cruise, okay? We are so on time. Congratulations to everyone. Okay, so the coming hours we will have a Paul Cheng Memorial Lecture. So this lecture basically have two parts, okay? The first part is the Inspiring Social Worker of the Year Award. So the reason why we set up this award is because we want to remember a person called Paul Cheng, and later on Professor Barbara Lee will introduce him to you. But here I will give you a very brief understanding of what this award is about. So on the brochure, when we're going to publicize this award, this is what we wrote. Social work is a calling which requires practitioners to have a strong commitment to caring and social justice. Despite the tremendous pressure of limited resources and heavy workload, many dedicated social workers in BC work hard, day in and day out, to fulfill their commitment to this calling. I hope you all have this calling. Otherwise, you'll find it difficult to go through your journey in this program and also beyond this program. So the Inspiring Social Worker of the Year Award have been established to recognize social workers in BC whose professional and personal efforts and dedication to serving people from marginalized communities has inspired others to care and contribute to the promotion of social justice. So this, I think this is our 5th year of the award, if I'm correct. 6 years. You know, I'm getting a little bit old, okay. I set this up, I forgot how many years. But in the first couple of years, we were struggling because not many people know about this award. But you know, recently, you know, in the last few years, we have, you know, a significant number of nominees for this award. It proves that, okay, people in BC, social workers in BC, realize that we need to give some recognition to our colleagues who have done a great job in, and not just doing the job, but also inspire other people to serve other people. So I would like to thank the nomination committee for this year's award, including the member of the former director of the school, Dr. Donna Ward, and also Dr. Barbara Lee, one of our faculty members, and also the ED Executive Director of the BCASW, Diane Heath, and also a representative from the BCASW, Dr. Pam Miller. So 5 of us together with the donor have reviewed all the nominations and then decide to recommend who get the award. And this year it's our honors to have 2 winners. As you can see, Miss Kathleen Cashin and also Laura, you know what, Laura Honey, sorry. Too old, sometimes you can't see very well. Forgive me. So we will have 2 winners this year. Each of them will later give us about 15 to 20 minutes a speech on their own experience and something that they would like to share with us. So before that, I would like to invite Darren Usher from the BCASW, also one of our proud alum, to introduce the association.
It's always great to be back as MSW alumni and see all the new buildings that pop up on campus. It's great. And we'll have a new one soon. Renewal. I'd like to thank Doris for a wonderful, inspiring speech. Amazing. I'm not so eloquent. I'm probably not as inspiring. But we do we're here to present the awards. We co-administer the awards with the school. And send that nomination call out to our members. BC Association of Social Workers, you can definitely become members. Do we have members? Certainly a few faculty members. So yeah, just $75 for students. Even if you don't get in now, get in your last year before you graduate, because you get the whole year at $75 instead of the full rate. Make a distinction. I've spent the last 3 years there as the Member Services Coordinator, and 2 years before that I was with the BC College of Social Workers. I think it's, I encourage all social workers to really try and understand the system in BC, the difference between the college and the association. The college mandate is protection of the public. They're not there to serve us as social workers. They're there to protect the public. If you want to be a social worker and use the term social work in BC, it's protected by law, and that's what they do. And most people here will need to be registered with the college if they want to find a job in BC. Having said that, there are some exceptions, and I encourage you to go have a look at those. It's a complicated system. The association, on the other hand, is a voluntary association. Our members volunteer to be with us. They pay their fees every year, and we support social workers and advocate for the profession of social work. So we want to better the profession. We're doing lots of work. We have boards and committees. We have a student representative on the board. We want to hear your voice, get your voice into all the decisions that we make as an association. And we're doing some good work. We have services that you can access. As the BC Association, we're the provincial branch of the Canadian Association. So once you're with us, you get access to all their resources and services too. So it's not a bad spend, $75. Join a committee. There are some very specific ones, like child protection, if that's your focus. You could sit on that committee and work with social workers that have been in child protection for 30, 40 years and really learn from them. It's excellent. I'll stop there.
Yes.
Thank you.
I understand that normally in our orientation, DSW orientation, we will invite the college and the association to come again. Am I correct? Sheila?
I can't hear you.
Yeah? Oh, no, I said, later on we will also invite the college and also the association to come to our orientation. Am I correct? Yeah. So you will know more. But honestly, $5, just to 1.5 Starbucks coffee. Go and join the association to support our own association, please. So next one, we would like to invite Dr. Barbara Lee to introduce, the life story of Paul Cheng. Yeah.
So the Inspiring Social Work of the Year Award was intended to recognize social workers in British Columbia whose personal and professional efforts in service to people of our community have inspired others to follow in their footsteps with professionalism, care, compassion, and an unwavering dedication to promote social justice, just like Paul Cheng, of whom this award was established in memory of. So Paul Cheng was an MSW graduate of the UBC School of Social Work. He began his social work career in Hong Kong, and when he immigrated to Canada, he worked in a wide scope of community services, including MCFD as a resource social worker, then a manager of Vancouver Detox, then Mosaic, and Success. Throughout the 40 years of being a social worker, Paul was well respected by his colleagues, supervisors, and students. He went above and beyond what the job required because to Paul, social work was not just a job, it was a calling. It's the ability to make a positive difference in the lives of others. When a boat full of Fujian Chinese refugees arrived on the shores of British Columbia in 1999, Paul was the first to respond to this crisis of human trafficking. He worked day and night to help with the immediate need and continued to work the months that followed to ensure appropriate care and resolution of the refugee settlement was given. Paul was awarded the Gold Award from the Public Service Employee Relations Committee for his service to the public in such an extraordinary and unprecedented situation. As a social work supervisor, he believed in the importance of connection and the relational aspects of the work. Over his career, Paul supervised a number of international exchange students, and he spent lots of time with the students, not just on the job, but including the weekends to show them around the city and ensure they were well settled in Vancouver. Students called him the best teacher in the world, and even in passing, many former students from years past traveled far to celebrate his life. Paul was an inspiration to all the lives he touched. His life exemplified what a social worker can achieve. He believed in the ripple effect and where positive change and inspiration can be passed on from one person to another and another. In memory of Paul, this Inspiring Social Worker of the Year award has been established to highlight those who live the passion of the social work calling and to continue the ripple effect that once shined bright in Paul Cheng's life. So we have two incredible awardees this year. The Inspiring Social Worker of the Year Award for 2022 goes to Kathleen, Cashin, and Laura Honey. And we'll have a brief introduction to each of the awardees, and we'll take some pictures while they receive the award. And we'll have Kathleen and Laura give the Paul Cheng Memorial Lecture. So we'll start with having Susie Teagan, who is the Manager of Social Work and Clinical Services with Covenant House Vancouver, one of Kathleen's nominees, come up to introduce Kathleen.
Hi everybody, it's really nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I was trying to do math in my head as I was sitting there, how long since I was in FSW orientation, but social workers are great at math, so that's why part of why we're here, right? Yeah, we nominated Kathleen, and as per our relationship, she has a very well printed out speech. I'm gonna wing it, which makes me a delightful manager to her, I'm sure. Kathleen, I had the privilege of hiring Kathleen, 3 years ago?
A little over, yeah.
Yeah, about 3 years ago when she was just finishing her MSW here. She came into the interview and left, and my coworker, Louisa, and I, who wasn't able to be here, both kind of looked at each other and went, who is this little weirdo? And we loved her, and then she came to work with us, and we realized this is exactly what we loved in the interview with her, was her mind works in different ways. She is relentlessly positive, which is a really good antidote to me, who can be relentlessly pessimistic. And her mind, the way her mind works is just always thinking of new ideas. She doesn't understand the word no. She just sees that as like, okay, well, we can do something different, or we can adjust, or how do we make something work? She always comes to the table with some strategies, and it's these little weirdos who make social work so great. And again, if you understand our relationship, you would understand that Kathleen, it's hard to not to turn things into a roast with Kathleen, because her sense of humor is so wonderful, and also just such a ray of sunshine on our team. I will say that when she applied for the anti-human trafficking position, she approached me and let me know she was going to put her name in there. And I was okay with that because she was staying with our agency. And she asked me, is there any advice? Is there anything you need to know or I need to do differently? You interviewed me once. What should I do now? And I said, just don't tell any jokes in the interview, Kathleen, because people don't understand you if they don't know you. So, but she has turned out to be our amazing sort of procedure and process person. She loves nothing more than to dig into a practice and figure out, are we doing it right? Is there more research? Is there latest research? And those are the kind of people that you really want to have on a team that's developing policy and practice. So we've been delighted to have her. To be an inspiring social worker, you have to be inspired by something. And I just want to say that this is the social worker that UBC built. So that's a real testament to the kind of work that's done here, the kind of education that you all are about to receive here from some of these colleagues that we have. And so we just thank you so much for inspiring Kathleen and then sending her out to work for people. So thanks.
Take your mask
Oh,
off.
cut off.
Okay. Hold your breath. Stand a little bit over here.
Sure, yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
right, can you hear me? So I'd like to begin by recognizing that we meet today on the unceded ancestral and traditional territory of the Coast Salish people. The UBC campus itself on which we meet today has been the home of the Musqueam people since time immemorial, during which the nation has been stewards of this land as they continue to be today. I work with Covenant House Vancouver, a youth shelter and drop-in located on the traditional lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I was also born and raised in Vancouver as an uninvited guest on these lands coming from Scottish, English, Russian, and Romanian descent. I'd like to express my deepest gratitude for the entire community of folks that have granted me the honor of this award and the opportunity to speak with you all today. Certainly a heartfelt thank you to my nominators of Louisa Brett, John Spiller, Subi Teagan, and Chelsea Minhas, my colleagues, constants, and confidants over the past 3 years. Thank you too to the BCASW and Diane Heath for organizing the award itself and for supporting this community of social workers throughout the province. I am especially privileged to commemorate the legacy of Paul Cheng and recognize the UBC School of Social Work for their leadership in the community. I had the good fortune of learning from the leaders in this room during my master's only about 3 years ago. The lessons I learned from the faculty extended beyond the classroom and continue to guide my work every day. A special thank you to Dr. Barbara Lee, who was a support during my master's and has continued to do so through this nomination process. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you all today. This is incredibly honoring, but also uncomfortable to be awarded a distinction of Inspiring Social Worker and present a speech on the topic. As I'm sure most of you have had the experience of a person outside the field say comments like, "Oh, you're so inspiring," or "Oh, I could never do what you do." These comments make us cringe and redirect the conversation away from ourselves. I find it additionally challenging in that, as a member of the community, I find the profession as a whole endlessly inspiring. And to pick moments of importance or people of note is not easy. My goal today is to share how inspiration is woven through social work and can be found in the very community that you're all entering into through your social work education. At the beginning of COVID, in March 2020, I was a frontline social worker, working from home, delivering case management services from my living room. Frankly, not knowing what to do, which was annoyingly called unprecedented times. I was trying to case manage over phone and text with no idea how to manage a caseload in a pandemic, how to support clients in isolation, and no idea what would come next. Moreover, I witnessed, as many of us did, the impact of COVID on the homeless population, and especially for people that use drugs, as they were faced with two colliding epidemics as the overdose crisis surged. All I wanted to do was help, but rather I felt the awful combination of helpless, useless, and isolated. Although my husband was a support to me throughout this, I felt disconnected from both my clients and my colleagues. We were in a dizzying situation where the landscape of our work changed overnight, while the needs of those that we support rose dramatically. I recall about a month into COVID, our team drafted a spreadsheet that compiled all the information from emails we were receiving about the changes in community organizations. This list quickly ballooned to over 100 different organizations with 100 different COVID protocols. Now, a spreadsheet is an odd piece of social work to focus on, but when I think back, it was the first shift from feeling isolated to feeling united in our collective experience of feeling inexperienced for the challenges we are facing. In creating this spreadsheet, we were able to engage with our community and start to have community practice calls with organizations all working in youth homelessness across the country. Some of these calls were opportunities to share resources and strategies, while others were spent sharing how none of us knew what to do next. Everyone entered into these conversations with humility and any advice they could offer. Within the local calls, we started to hear about pandemic withdrawal management, which was one of the first waves of safe supply to widely be approved, in part due to the unique wording of this initiative. This is probably one of my favorite roundabout ways I've ever seen a systems change come in. Our social work team has an award we call the Devious Donkey that is given to any team member with an innovative strategy for getting the resources their clients need. Now, whoever came up with the phrasing of pandemic withdrawal management is certainly owed the Devious Donkey Award. The concept of pandemic withdrawal management brought to attention that during a lockdown, and a respiratory pandemic, people that use drugs need access to safe alternatives that do not require either buying off the street or inhaling substances. Pandemic withdrawal management proposed prescribing either the actual drug or substitutes so that folks could have their needs met through medical channels. This initiative was offered in reference to the pandemic, but was needed long before COVID and continues to today. Once we saw this idea, Michelle Miller, my incredible coworker, and I got to work finding a way for our organization to pick up this idea as part of our own pandemic shift in practice around addiction. We collected all the information from the BC CDC and Vancouver Coastal Health and consulted with organizations with active pandemic withdrawal management strategies. We then drafted a policy proposal and submitted our recommendations to senior management in May of 2020, after which it was quickly approved. Now, I just want to take a moment to recognize, at this point in my journey to today, we didn't create anything new, other than some Microsoft Office documents. This shift in our response came from the community. All we did was engage with leaders and humbly learn from them. We asked concrete, logistical questions to outside organizations, while also asking questions of our own organization as to how we could serve our community better. This process of asking questions shifted how we engage with our clients and with the community we work alongside. About a month following the conclusion of our work with pandemic withdrawal management came a transformative opportunity to outline a full harm reduction pilot proposal. Over the next 2 months, Michelle and I read countless articles, consulted with organizations and leaders with lived experience, and surveyed the local community to determine the evidence base for youth harm reduction. We were challenged with ethical, legal, and logistical questions about how this could look, all while knowing that harm reduction saves lives, and we had to find a way to make it work. We did all this too while maintaining our caseload, as we were both case managers at the time, forming this proposal from the side of our desks. Ultimately, we came up with yet another proposal that was sent to senior management while we crossed our fingers and hoped for the best. I can share today that not only was that proposal approved, it continues today and has been shared with youth homeless organizations across North America. Our outreach, drop-in, and brief services programs all make available safe supply for smoking, injecting, and sex, all while holding non-judgmental space to share information with youth about how to use safely and explore individual needs. We are about to conclude the pilot project, and upon review of the outcomes, we'll look at embedding harm reduction principles across the organization. Now, although this pandemic brought countless challenges, it also shifted our systems that allowed for change. COVID placed every organization and support person in a position of not knowing and opened us up to answers we might not have taken the time to listen to before. Last year, Karen Lucky won the 2021 recipient of the Inspiring Social Worker of the Year Award, spoke to the curiosity approach. She outlined how we should learn from a stance that we do not know about the people we are working with, and prompted us to ask questions as to what our clients need instead of imposing on them what we think. I would too extend this curiosity approach to communities. Now, this approach wasn't optional during the height of the pandemic, as every social worker, agency, and organization scrambled to find solutions to challenges we could have never predicted. We had no other choice but to turn to one another and to the communities in which we work. These communities of sharing, learning, and support were my greatest inspiration during the hardest days of lockdown. Social workers across Vancouver, Canada, and North America shared what they had in an open and collaborative way, knowing that a collaborative approach was needed. Just over a year ago, I left my frontline social work role to take what I learned from my experience with harm reduction and apply it to anti-human trafficking. The goal of my work now is to find evidence-based best practices for anti-human trafficking and apply it into my organization context. Coming into this role, I knew what we were hoping to achieve wasn't novel: to address the exploitation and trafficking of youth in an urban setting. It wasn't a question of reinventing the wheel, but rather asking what it would look like if this pre-existing wheel had a parking spot at Covenant House. When glancing over required readings for papers, research might seem foreign to social work, like a step we all have to do in school to get to the real work. But what I've come to realize is that the evidence base for our work isn't simply an abstract collection of tables and graphs, but it is a crucial way for us as social workers across the globe to build a network of information sharing so that our parking lots are full of the best tools we can use. Evidence-based social work highlights how we draw inspiration from one another in the ways that we identify trends and challenges, look for creative solutions, and share our ideas with one another in the hope that it will aid in another social worker's practice. When it came to anti-human trafficking, this evidence base was both research-driven and place-based. There's a wealth of information about human trafficking, trauma bonding, grooming and screening available through research journals and anti-human trafficking initiatives. Moreover, taking an intersectional position broadened information, so we included best practices from Indigenous, 2S LGBTQIA+, feminist and racialized perspectives. This information was invaluable at the start of the journey to discover evidence-based best practices. It was, however, the folks in our very community that inspired where we are now. I spoke with folks from anti-trafficking, Indigenous, Justice, Newcomer, 2S LGBTQIA+, youth homeless, sex work, and women's organizations. I asked the question, what do you need from us? And I received a wealth of requests, information, and guidance. Through this consultation process, I was amazed how I continued to hear that collaboration was the biggest need, along with housing. We are in Vancouver after all. I had to have a joke. This sector almost universally agreed that an issue as challenging and as vast as human trafficking needs a united approach. We needed to work together, learn together, and be inspired by one another. We listened to the community, and in February of this year, we moved from asking questions individually to asking questions collectively in the forming of an advisory group. This community has been a space of information sharing, as well as a generator for optimism, as each member connected with the goal of finding solutions. We are not alone in carrying the stories of our clients or the overwhelming statistics of this sector, but rather we became united in our hope that prevention, intervention, and healing could happen. I love social work because that is exactly what this profession is, a community. This community is here today, sitting alongside you as your peers and professors. Your community is also in the evidence base you will be learning from and the practicum placements you will be working within. This community is our greatest asset, and I feel immense gratitude to be in it with you. Rather than saying, oh, you're so inspiring, I could never do what you do, I can genuinely say that I get to do what y'all do, and y'all are immeasurably inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathleen. Wow. I feel really humbled, not that we nurture these great social workers. I feel humbled that we are learning from each other. I feel humbled that I'm learning how to be a good practitioner in the field. I have to confess, okay, as someone who has left the field for so many years, everything to me seems like Alfie Towers. Okay, so it's coming from the book. Listening to all this, I think it's better than any of us, most of us, I won't say any of us, most of us, right, to tell you what the book's about. Because social work is not about the book. Social work is about practice. So I think, I hope you have learned a lot from Kathleen. And I know one thing for sure is, social workers alone cannot do anything. We need a community. We need a community to inspire, to be inspired. Thank you very much, Kathleen. To introduce Laura Honey. Yeah.
So it's really hard to sum up all of Laura's accomplishments. Her CV is just outstanding. And we had numerous recommendation letters. So I've taken a few words from each of her nominators to introduce Laura. So from Julia Hintermeister, who's the clinical supervisor at Fort St. John Hospital Child and Youth Mental Health Stabilization Program. Laura has dedicated her career to serving children and youth. Early on in her career as a social worker, she supported youth through forensics and probation. She then went on to work with survivors of sexual abuse And most recently, she provides tireless mental health crisis support through the local emergency department. As a RCC, Laura has also run a successful private practice in Fort St. John for the past 6 years. Laura is best described as a yes person. She is solution-oriented and will rarely accept that a problem is permanent. She is a collaborator, a fixer, and a problem solver. So from Dr. Jeffrey Ainsworth, a pediatric psychiatrist, we have worked together on 2 occasions where a patient arrived in emergency in Fort St. John and had to be transferred for treatment in Vancouver. The way she was able to coordinate the different professionals in 3 or 4 different locations seamlessly is very impressive. She does all of this in a quiet, confident, and respectful manner, which avoids the irritation and impatience that people sometimes show when asked to accept a difficult transfer from up north. One of the most impressive features about Laura is her compassion, balanced by a professional, clinical approach which helps the patient feel supported and understood. From Ursula Kerr and Lindsay Jardine from Peace River, who are Peace River social workers, we want to nominate Laura because we find her ongoing efforts to creatively find solutions incredibly inspiring. Laura doesn't take no for an answer, and she doesn't let systematic issues stop her from supporting her community. She regularly finds workaround solutions and is willing to try new things without guarantees. When she encounters a barrier, she seeks out a new solution and isn't deterred by difficult problem solving. She has seen the gap in support services for youth in Fort St. John and has taken into action to effectively address the problem. Thanks to her work, youth in our community can more readily access services and families can access psychological assessments. And from Christy White, a registered therapeutic counselor for Piece by Piece Counseling, I'm inspired by Laura's endless passion, enthusiasm, and dedication to her work, and we have been fortunate to learn from her and work alongside her. So with these words, I want to present the Inspiring Social Work Award to Laura.
Paparazzi photo here. Take your mask off.
Oh, sorry.
You need just a little bit.
Okay.
A little bit over.
Thank you.
Because you probably timed yours out to a T, and I tend to kind of go off, a few notes that have been running through my subconscious awareness for the last couple of weeks since I realized that I had been gifted with this award. And so I want to start out with just saying my name is Laura Honey. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm coming today from the northern community of Fort St. John, the traditional territory of all the Treaty 8 nations. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, I'm seeing some nods in the back. Excellent. I've never been accused of being quiet in my entire life. So usually I project well across any room that I'm in. So, privileged to be part of this journey that you are all embarking on today. Whether you're just beginning your first year or you're picking up your third year or you're starting your master's, September has this certain kind of energy about it when you start the new school year. And it's an exciting time, fresh duotang, sharpened pencils, new school clothes, and opportunities that are endless. And it's a real privilege to be here with you today, and I'm a little bit envious that I'm not going to be continuing on with you throughout the school year, and I just get this one little piece of time with you. So, I'm going to check my time here. It's 11:31. I have 15 minutes. Okay. You're going into a field that is so desperately needing you. It's a field that serves others in very profound ways, and you get the opportunity to join with people in their journey. And sometimes you'll come into their lives just for a short period of time, and other times you'll stick around for a few years, but you have this opportunity to make a big difference, and you never know when that difference is going to happen. You never know what meaning people are going to take out of the littlest things that you experience with them. So I want to acknowledge all of you in choosing this profession to serve others. It might not be the most lucrative at times, but it is the most fulfilling. And in my life, it has changed everything. And so today, I'm going to share with you a little bit about my story and about my journey, about how I ended up here. And you'll see in the pamphlet there, it starts out with a rebellious teenager. And so it's funny because I wrote this big biography, right, sent it in to everybody who asked for it, and everybody kind of took their own pieces out of it. Once again, that meaning piece, right, everybody kind of takes it. And so it was neat to kind of see that those were the 3 chunks that kind of got put into this program today. I do want to acknowledge a few people, and I appreciate Barbara for that introduction. It was lovely. The people who nominated me are up in Fort St. John, and so they weren't able to join us today, but they are here in spirit with me. And I carry them with me everywhere I go. And so thank you, Ursula Kerr and Lindsay Jardine. A few years ago, we started a social work club up in Fort St. John, because there's not a whole lot of us, and we needed a little bit of collaboration, and let's be honest, some time to sit with other social workers and gossip about all the ins and outs of social work. And that kind of group doesn't usually attract outsiders. It's kind of specific to the social work field, we'll say. And so the 3 of us then have gotten together for the last couple of years and talked shop. And it's been inspirational. And it's given me the opportunity to chase what I see as very important work. So, other 2 people I'd like to thank are Julia Hintermeister and Christy White, who are colleagues of mine, both private practice clinicians, and incredibly talented human beings that have a lot of life to them. And of course they inspire as well, just from being in their presence. And then my colleague, Dr. Jeffrey Ainsworth. Jeffrey Ainsworth and I crossed paths a few years ago when I was really trying to fill some of the big gaps up north. And those gaps we'll get to are ones within the child and youth mental health sector. And you know, up north we're often given timelines around, you know, it's 1 year to 2 years for a child or youth to get a psychiatric assessment. And in that, my book, that doesn't jive. We've got to do better. And so we'll talk a little bit about starting up a psych clinic up there and connecting with Jeffrey Ainsworth, who's here down in Vancouver. But I like to surround myself with yes and people, right? You're right, I don't take no for an answer. And I'm always willing to kind of throw a yes and out there. So don't tell me no, you can tell me yes. And it might not work, I'll go with that. But we are professional problem solvers as social workers. We are agents of change. And those are the kind of big things that I hold with me at all times. Right? Professional problem solvers, we solve big problems. And there's always a way to solve a problem. And I want to encourage all of you as you move through your careers to not get stuck in the confines of current systems that are created before you even came into this practice. I often look, and maybe I'm a bit critical, at the systems we have, and they are outdated systems. And so find ways to make them work for the people you serve instead of making the people you serve work for the systems. So, let's do a little check-in of the time here. Okay, we're okay. All right, so I'm going to invite all of you just to take a moment. You can close your eyes, you can kind of glare off somewhere so you know, you can kind of have the moment that your mind needs just to clear. Take a big deep breath with me. And one more. I'm going to invite your mind to go back many, many years. Just land yourself somewhere in your journey to where you are today. Most of us can kind of start around a certain timeline that guided us towards where we are today. And I want you just to spend a moment in your mind thinking of all those dots that connect. that led you to today? Just take a moment on each one. And now I want you to also think about the people who have been with you on that journey. I want you to feel them. It's often not until we look back at life that we realize dots do connect. And sometimes those dots are difficult life lessons, realizations, discovering your emotional compass, happenstances, reached goals. Come on back into the room. Take a moment to center yourself. Feel the chair underneath you, the air around you. This is your journey for the next year. How exciting. When I do this connect the dots, I take myself back to my adolescent years. So my mother always says I was a natural helper since the day I was born. She recalls me as a young child helping kids up the ladder to go down, the slide over and over again, making sure everybody could get up and go down the slide on the playground. And then she says something weird happened around the age of 12, 13. I hit adolescence. And that helping child went through a very rebellious phase, as she would say. Poor parents, I had very good parents, they didn't know what in the world to do with me. But turned out, when I look back, it was probably fueled by a need for connection with others and a whole lot of social and generalized anxiety. And so I spent my adolescent years, most of them, as I say, retiring in grade 9 and discovering who I was through many, many difficult life lessons. And I remember sitting on the back porch of my parents' house, Shawnigan Lake on Vancouver Island, small little town, sunny day, and I was in a rut. I'd kind of hit the rock bottom of my adolescence. And it came to me, and this is the thing about realizations. Realizations are those moments in life where it all comes together, and from that moment forward, nothing else is the same. Everything changes. Those are the realizations, they're profound. And I thought to myself, this isn't my life. This isn't my life. And so it changed. And change means behavioral change. It means putting one foot in front of the other. It's the same that you're going to go through on this journey today. You're going to put one foot in front of the other, and you're going to get through every single obstacle that is presented to you. If you wake up every single day and take one step closer to an end goal, you will get that goal. Not every day is going to be the same, but keep on waking up and taking one step. Whether it's getting one paper done, whether it's finishing one more exam, whether it's taking a chance, one step in front of the other. So this was not my life. And so I decided I'd go back to school. And it turns out I was okay at it. Started an alternative school and ended up going back to regular high school. And the high school I went to, it was a self-paced system. So it was really well designed for somebody like me. And I was able to finish up my 4 years of high school, 2 years graduate honors, got out of there. Taking care of business, got a driver's license, a Honda Prelude, and a job at Hot Spot Pizza. Served me well. And then, of course, life changes again. And I spent a couple of years kind of wandering. I was supposed to go into nursing, of all things. Didn't pan out. Just couldn't stick it. Then I took another shot at school, and I ended up in a social work class. Pat Conkin's 200A social work class. And that's where I discovered my emotional compass, because it made me feel alive. I was alive. Something inspired me. Something gave me a drive. I was like, ooh, this feels great. When you're hearing about horrible things, you're like, I shouldn't feel like this. This is horrible things. But it made me want to do something about it. And so that's where another dot connects. So I make my way through a social work program, went to UBC, the Okanagan campus. Kelowna's a beautiful place. Graduated, the specialization in child welfare. Went right into child protection. And I was reading, I think it was The Secret or something like that at the time, and there were so many people voting for this job that I really wanted in child protection, and so I started packing all of my things and writing down the address to where I was moving to, Gibson's on the Sunshine Coast. I packed all my things and I got the job. #1 candidate. Turns out, for a lot of panel interviews, what they do is they rate you on how many facts you can provide within a certain amount of time. Well, I can talk like the best of them, and so I think I could feed them all kinds of things all day long. And so they gave me the opportunity, and away I went to child protection. And this is where life lessons, once again, I discovered. My big discovery in doing child protection was that I tended to take on other people's problems. And I worried about them continuously. I worried if my clients were okay. I worried if I was going to make a difference. And I burnt out, crispy burnt, in a couple of years. And you will too. I can guarantee you, almost all of you at some point will hit this point where you get up in the morning, you go to get in the shower, and then you just go right back to bed again and you pull the blankets over. And I want you to keep an eye on those tells for burnout, because it's real, and we need to keep you all in this line of work. And so you need to take care of yourself and listen to that emotional compass. Right? If at first you don't land in something that really inspires you, that really fits for you, that is okay. Because there's lots of other areas that you will fit into. And when you find it, it will be the perfect fit. So I ended up leaving child protection, the thing I've been working at for so many years, burnt to a crisp, back on Vancouver Island, Mom and Dad. I was going to move out to Alberta, and then happenstance comes along. Happenstance for me ended up with a chance encounter with an old friend who, we'll say, borrowed a pickup truck, wrote it off, and I couldn't get to Alberta. So I ended up staying on Vancouver Island. Happenstance. A few weeks later, I got into the youth probation system, doing some support work. And it led me on this incredible journey of almost full circle back to my adolescence. And that's where I landed. Aha, this is my fit. Here it is. Now, it didn't all just come at once. Of course, it took time. But it gave me opportunities in youth forensics. I did a master's in counseling psychology. I got to start working in child and youth mental health, MCFD's child and youth mental health. Another happenstance. My husband says, "You want to go up north?" I always wanted a northern adventure. We pack up the house and our white schnauzer, Dr. Carl Brown, and away we went, up to the north. I took a position as a SAPE worker at a community organization. SAPE worker is a sexual abuse and intervention program for children and adolescents who have experienced sexual abuse, and also children under the age of 12 who have sexual behavior problems. Now, most people are like, ugh, I'm with you. People say, I could never do that work. But I could. I don't know. It fit. Felt right. But it was limiting again. Those confines of a program that was set up 20 years before I came along just narrowed me. And so I took a chance and went into private practice. And I started this private practice, and it opened up a world of opportunity for me to explore what I soon discovered were massive gaps in the mental health systems for our children and youth. And we started looking at how do we fill these gaps, these huge, huge gaps. And one of them was through creating a psychiatry clinic. Can't say I see a whole bunch of kids and there's still lists long as my arms, but we see a few. Those are really important things. And then we can do them simply. You don't have to make big, complex plans. All I did was hunt down Jeffrey Ainsworth in Vancouver, asked him if he would meet virtual. I do all the legwork, and we set ourselves up a psych clinic within about 3 days. We don't have to make things complicated. There are simple solutions to big problems. I ended up going on maternity leave. That lasted about 5 days. I was back to work because babies, only one especially, sleep a lot. I was lucky enough. I know, don't want to hear from the parents that their babies never slept, but mine did. And during that time, it gave me some more time to kind of bubble and boil and really get into this gap in mental health services. And so we started, myself and some colleagues, hearing in the newspaper about kids coming out of the emergency department at the Fort St. John Hospital who were highly suicidal, had significant self-harm behaviors, high levels of depression, anxiety, you name it, across the board, coming out of that hospital, and they had nowhere to go. They were sitting on wait lists for 9, 10 months. And I couldn't imagine myself as a parent having my child go through an absolute medical crisis with nothing to follow up with afterwards. And so we started trying to see how we could fill the gap. And the people that I mentioned today were people that were part of that journey. And we started canvassing anyone who would listen in the Northern Health region, see if they'd give us a chunk of money to try out some crisis response. And we came across one, because all you need is one. All you need is just that one person to hear it. And hundreds of people heard it from me, but just that one was all I needed. Her name's Donna Ward. She's the Director of Specialized Services through Northern Health. And she told myself and my colleague Julia Hintermeister, all right, I agree, we need something. We need something for these kids. And she gave us a room next to the emergency department and a tiny little contract. And Julia and I decided that we both work 2 days of the week out of that emergency department, and we start to fill the gap. We had no idea what we were in for. No idea. So the work wasn't even close to done. That program started 1 year ago today. It's called the Northern Health Stabilization Program. And it serves anybody under the age of 19 who comes through the emergency department in mental health crisis. And we do a gamut of different things. But we had to keep going for further funding, for further people. And I can tell you at this point today, my team is back there, and I say team because we do. We now have 6 employees. We both work full-time. We provide both crisis mental health and substance use services. And we really wanted to avoid this problem of what we see in a lot of our systems of hot potato, right? Kid comes in through a referral source, and hot potato, they try to get rid of it any way they can, right? Somebody else's problem, they don't fit the criteria, they never called me back. I don't know, they didn't show up for their first appointment. It's not acceptable to me. We are not hot potatoing kids anymore. We take in any kid that comes through that door, and we do what we can to stabilize them in any way we can, and you do not get discharged from our caseloads. You stay on as long as you need to. And I can say as of today, I think we're at about 110 children and families that we've served through that small rural hospital. And there's 100 more coming this year. So, I invite you all to have a look around you at your colleagues, people that you're going to be sharing this next year of your adventure. Find ways to solve big problems. Inspire each other. And enjoy your journey. Okay, I'm out of time.
How many of you want to live a life like that? You do, eh? Good. How many don't want to live a life like that? Good. Otherwise, I would say, this is September, you probably can change to the other department very soon. Yes, thank you very much, Laura. This is amazing life. What I learned from here is be persistent. Believe in yourself, right? I like what you said, don't say, don't give up to no, right? Try to hang on to yes. That's what the spirit we need, okay? There's a long way for you to go, just like Laura has gone through. And I'm pretty sure, how many years you want? 5 years, 2 years, 3 years from now?
How many years from
For the student to show they do a good job?
Oh, we're accepting practicum students up north, if anybody's looking for
Immediately, okay? So I hope, one day, okay, I will see you back to tell us the same story like, what Laura told us, how you really excelled in the social work role. And not just for yourself, right? But for the goodness of the society, of the community that you really care. Great, thank you very much. Okay, we still have about 10 minutes. Anyone want to, I keep trying to say what I thought, but I want to hear from you, okay? What have you heard? Anyone want to share after this, two marvelous, lovely story? Anyone want to share what you have heard? Or any question for our, for our two winners?
Are you going back to Fort St. John, or are you staying here now?
Nope, my husband and my daughter are wandering the campus, and right after this, we're hitting the road. Back up we go.
Driving?
Yes.
Oh my.
I'll share my coffee with you.
Let's do it before we go.
Anyone else?
What are some of the hardest obstacles that you've had to overcome from each of you? First.
Genuinely, a lot of imposter syndrome. I love macro social work. It's big picture, it's systemic. But being like a little 5'2" person with an awful sense of humor, running around being like, well, what about this? It comes every day. And so I think, like I kept on talking about community, but having that community of folks to bounce ideas off of, so that, like these two lovely people, if I have a bad one, they'll tell me, so that by the time it gets out the door, I feel a lot more confident. But I think even just knowing, like, everyone's got it. I don't think any of us imagined as kids that we'd be doing the work that we're doing, so it just comes that way.
Would say the biggest obstacles have been put up against, like I said, old system design, and just being told no. We don't give funding for that. This isn't the right place. When you hear no and no and no over and over again, and I've been told no a lot in these kinds of lines of work, you start to get disheartened. And I think that's where a little bit of the burnout comes from as well, right? It's like you're always pushing and pushing and trying to get things rolling and get the ball rolling. And so I think that would be the hardest part at times. But the hardest part is also the most rewarding. Because when you overcome those no's, damn, it feels good. And like you said, like little small, kind of feeling powerless, I think, at times in the face of some really big wigs. And people that have been in these professions a very long time and are not too out to change the way things are going for them. That's a great question.
To speak to imposter syndrome, I run a group for social workers starting in private practice at the association. There are 120 in that group, and it's probably the most talked about subject, imposter syndrome. And I think it's a problem of defining our profession, and so I would encourage you to define what you do and why you do it, and get that stuck in your head and be able to explain that to your clients and to other professionals. And the problem with defining our profession is it's so diverse. There's so many different fields that you could go into, so many different jobs. You can go into policy writing and you can go into frontline. So it's hard to define, but for you to define it for yourself will help you with that imposter syndrome.
Oh,
Sorry. Laura, you spoke to taking on your clients' problems when you're working in child welfare. What was something that you, or a piece of advice you would give to someone that might also be facing that in their practicum or in their field of work?
Brilliant question. That we are just part of somebody's journey. And no matter what we say and do, won't necessarily push somebody to do what we think they should say or do. Right? I've moved into a position, I think, for self-preservation to avoid burnout, of more of observation and offering. Right? I watch, I observe, right? I notice what people are doing, and I offer and invite them to join in the journey, instead of trying to force them into change. It is not ethical to force anybody into change. People have the right to live whatever life that they see fit. And it is not me to judge if that is good nor bad. So watch, observe, offer, and invite. And at the end of the day, this is going to sound silly, but to really kind of wash yourself of the day when you get home. And I do this crazy, I'm kind of quirky like you. I open my sock drawer at home, and I metaphorically put everything into the drawer, and I close it, and I say, I'll see you in the morning. And when I open the next day to put on my socks, I'm putting back on kind of that world that I walk into every single day. But we have to be able to leave it, and I remember staying awake for so many nights, wondering and plotting and planning about how I was going to make these life-changing, things happen for people. It wasn't my role. It's not, you can't take that away from people. And I would say one more thing, is that we have to make very hard decisions in social work, extremely difficult decisions at times, that will have profound effects on people's lives. And so I would say, in that decision making, the thing that has kept me from burning out is just to think of this one little thing. If I was to sit in a court of law and a judge was to ask me why I made the decisions I made, could I answer those questions with best practice, with ethical decision making? Can I answer that and feel good about what my response would be? That's how I know I'm making the right decisions. And that, for some reason, just avoids that burnout of concern about making wrong decisions. Sorry, long-winded.
Anyone else?
I'll maybe just add to that a little bit. Kathleen, what's the thing that I say to you more than anything else?
That I'm not that important.
You're not that exactly. And so I would say,
I love that. I was like, are we going to say this?
Yeah. Just in adding to what Laura said, not only is it unethical for us to force people into change, we don't have that kind of power. We don't have that, we're not superheroes, we don't have the kind of power to make people change, and all we can do is walk beside them. And I was reading something the other day about the word compassion and how the two words mean to come alongside of someone's suffering, and that's what we do in social work. It's also the same, remember those things, here's another math thing, guys, that compass thing that you drew do they still use those? I don't know, it draws a line from dot to dot. All we're doing is helping them draw that line. And so just think of it that way, is you're not that important, you're not that powerful, you can't make them change. And they might need some of those things that they're hanging on to keep going. They're the things that got them to the door to see you. So I would just add that, just keep that in mind.
Thank you very much. Well, lots to think about. Lots to really, for us to really, try to reflect on, right? And I would say, start from today, you may want to take a little journal about your life. I'm not asking you to write a reflection journal. You're all fed up with it. But I would say, if there's a moment that you want to jot down, okay, jot it down, right? Because 10 years later, when you look back, oh, that's what I have gone through. Like Laura said, I have gone through all those dots, and all these dots now connected, because after 10 years, now I know. Okay, so hopefully today you'll get something from our two inspiring social workers, and we'll see you back to the class tomorrow for most of you. So once again, thank you for our